Hello all the crazy people out there, my name is Michael, I like wizards and dragons and making games, and welcome back to making 3D Zelda-like wizard games in Game Maker. Let's see, last time I believe I finished up the game state and inventory section of this adventure, and today I'm going to be moving on to some other miscellaneous interactions for things that you can do with the systems that we have to make the 3D levels a little bit more interesting. I've gone and I did go and write down, as I said, a few more ideas for different interactions that we could use to build levels. Buttons slash pressure plates was the obvious one. That was the one that I mentioned last time. I feel like I didn't actually write down all of the things that I brainstormed on this board because I'm pretty sure there were more than three. Pushable rotors. This is, if you think, I want to say the Fortree City Gym in Pokemon Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald. Like, you walk past them or you push a block past them or something and they turn and they open up another path. I'll have like videos or screenshots or something like that of all these things on screen right now. A seesaw, so if you like drop a block onto the seesaw, the other side goes up and the one side goes down. Pulley is a similar this is a similar deal. This might be a little bit more involved because actually like drawing the pulley and not making it look weird, that'll be a whole thing. And yeah, I was pretty sure I wrote down more things than this. I guess I just didn't get them all onto the Codex board. But anyway, let's get started with this one, the one that's been on this list for the longest. This should also probably be the easiest. So we're going to need to define a 3D object. It's going to have a press state, an unpressed state, and some transition states of some sort. You could probably get away with making the transitions like an actual transition in the state machine and not like a pressed or unpressed state, but I don't know. Anyway, I'm also going to need a visible model for a button on the floor, which I actually don't know if I have created yet, and if I haven't, I'm going to need to improvise on the spot. But we're going to hand this for today. This one over here, like a knockable pot or a thing that you can knock over, by the way, that is a fairly ubiquitous object in the first three Harry Potter games. And I kind of just put it on this list as like an obligatory thing. I'm not actually that interested in doing it. I feel like there's more interesting things we could do with our time here, but I'll keep it on the list for now just in case. Alright, let's see. Firstly, let me see what my 3D object inventory looks like. Okay, so I don't have a pressure plate model, but I do have a button model, which is the same like general shape. And while I will still have to make an actual like pressure plate object later on, we can make do with our button. And I will have to write down. There is an art stuff I've got to make board down here. Really, all of these things that I'm going to be designing in this deck are going to end up on that list at some point, so I don't forget. But for the time being, so that we can just get the code working, let's work with this. All right. Gameplay 3D objects. There are quite a few of them. Let's see. Actually, hang on. Would it help if I clone the toggle switch or the push button? Let's clone the push button. No, Game Maker, help, stop. OBJ 3D pressure plate. So this is not going to respond to spells. Let's see. We're going to draw the base mesh. All right, that's fun. With a rotation, with a translation, and all that. I'm going to want a primed, an activating, an active, and a deactivating. No, I won't want that. I'll want unpressed. I did say that I can probably skip out on the transition states, right? I don't think that's necessary. Unpressed, pressed, and that can be it, I think. So Instead of saying on spell, we'll change state to pressed or oops, or unpressed. We will instead check for collisions with certain objects, and that could be let's say that could be the player. Maybe the player can just step on a button. That could be a block. That could be something else. I don't need. I'm not gonna give all of these an activation mechanism or anything like that, I don't think. If we can go into variable definitions, I can also clean out a few things down here. I don't, for example, need a spell response. Let's set that to no object. Infinite use isn't relevant to us because these things are intended to be toggleable. I think that's it. I will need some... Do I want to animate them being pressed or unpressed? In Wizarducks, it just clicks on or off. It doesn't have a transition state. It'll just draw one model or the other. I guess I'll do that in this case, but instead of drawing one model or the other, I will draw the like the thing in the middle. If the current state is pressed or unpressed, we can draw the thing in the middle. I don't need to reset the transformation. I just need to draw it. All right. Let's see. I can get rid of button offset, I think. I don't need that anymore either. So let's go and just drop one of these test objects in the world. That's done down here. OBJ3D. Pressure plate. This won't do anything. There's no actual way to... Okay, that just broke. And why is that? Oh, we don't have update states? We don't have update methods in the state, rather? Yeah. Alright, we'll get to that in a minute. This is going to, again, not be triggered by spells. Oh, come on. Oh. Why am I bad at game design? I wonder how much of my life I could save if I remember to... What? Oh, is that just not initialized anywhere? Probably. As I was saying, I wonder how much of my life I could, I've wasted by not ever, remembering to do things like that. Anyway, we have a pressure plate rendering in the world, or a button rendering on the floor anyway. I think that's good enough for now. So I did go ahead and threw together a pressure plate, like, base object, like programmer object, and this is the point where I'm going to have to start worrying about collisions. The buttons, these have collisions for spells, which I don't really want. Pressure plates I just want regular collisions for. And this is also, I think, going to be a special collision object. I did, by the way, at some point in the last few weeks go and add a from bounding box button to this collision shapes thing, so that's hopefully going to save me some time. I'm going to name this, oh, for God's sake, what have I been naming all of my collision shapes? Alright, so it's # spell target, or # whatever. This one can be # activation. And instead of being a solid object, or instead of being a, like a spell target or anything else, any other special object, this can be a shape which is not going to really participate in collision checks, but it is going to go and check against the world periodically and figure out if there is like a box at the player's feet or something else standing on top of it. Alright, that's probably going to be a common refrain in some of these other things. So when I do pushable rotors or seesaws or something, we're going to have special collision shapes which will check if there is a collision against something like that. Actually, maybe not for maybe not for these, because I will also need them to be solid in the traditional sense. Anyway, gonna go export those back into the game. I'm going to need to actually use the pressure plate mesh in this pressure plate object. I think instead of drawing one and possibly two meshes, I'm just going to say if the current state is unpressed, we'll draw one thing. Otherwise, we will draw the other thing, and that's going to look something like this. Let's see. I should draw the unpressed version, right? Which is just going to be like a tile, which is sort of in the air. Why are you sort of in the air? Am I am creating you, instantiating you sort of in the air. Okay, good. There's nothing wrong with something else. Let's see. I think I'm done with the draw event now. So as for update, let's see. So like, let's see, for activation, I will set this to none. And there are some objects that will, for example, the player. There are some objects that will make use of a bunch of additional collision shapes. So, okay, so my overcomplicating senses were telling me that I was about to overcomplicate something. What I need is a way to quickly and without too much pain and suffering access a particular collision shape so that I can check it against the collision world. That collision shape in question is, as you probably guessed, the activation collision shape / collision object. I'm just going to call that get activation zone. So I think I can array, what is it, array get index? Is that the one that takes a predicate callback? Array find index? Alright, that's the one that takes a predicate. Self.mesh collision shapes. The function that we're going to be using, the function that we're going to be going with is going to check if the shape data equals activation. That's what I called it, right? Activation. It is, okay. Can say that to the index, and I'm going to want to return the 3D objects self.c object. Or I can probably search self.c shapes. I forgot that was there too. Oh no, because I need the name. Like that. I guess you can also say like if index equals -1, return undefined or something to that effect. But if index ever equals -1, then we have some other problems on our hands, like the pressure plate was improperly configured. So I think I'm going to want to crash in that event. Anyway, I will need the activations group to be the default one, I think, because I will need that. I will need the I will need that collision shape to be able to check against the world. So I'm going to say in the update method, if our activation zone if we can ever check this against anything in the world, obj game.collision.check object. Then we can actually change our state to the press state. And then in the press state, we'll be doing the opposite. So if we ever detect the absence of an object, we can change back to unpressed, and I think then I can get rid of all that other stuff because I don't care about all that other stuff. All right. So with a little bit of luck, if I run the game now, the game is going to crash. That's very exciting. So we do indeed have a -1 there. I wonder why that is. We can find that out real quick. This is probably going to be something stupid, isn't it? # activation. ACTIVATION. Oh, wait. Okay. It wasn't -1. It was actually an index, and the problem is that there's nothing in here. I don't think that the collision information was ever actually being set. Probably should do that. So I don't believe that the collision shapes for this object were ever actually being set, and I probably should do that. I know they are when they get loaded from a from a Unity map, but it doesn't look like they were ever actually doing that here. All right, so when I walk onto this, nothing happens, and how, on a scale of 1 to 10, how suspicious am I that I've screwed up the mask and what am I looking for? The mask and the group again. That should go with the default collision mask. All right, let me run this again. Either way, I should be able to walk into it, but I should be able to see something happening. Nope. All right, so that I had it right the first time. Okay, you know what I think is complicating things is the fact that the player, I don't think, is actually part of the collision world. By the way, this is not the first time I've suspected that somewhere inside my collision object system code, masks and groups are the other way around other than what they should be, because there's been a few instances where it seems like, based on what I keep saying about masks and groups and how they behave, they should be doing a thing, but it's really the opposite. I hope that's not the case, because in that case I'm going to have to really go and dig into a lot of places and figure out if things are working properly, but including like leaving a pinned comment on those videos in which I wrote that code. But the bigger problem seems to be that the player, I don't think, is actually a part of the collision world. I think the player is actually like doing their own collision checks without being part of the collision world. Let's see what happens if I push a block over one of these things. Alright, don't climb up the block. Don't climb up the block. But if we push you that way, stop, and then push you that way. Alright, so you're correctly detecting the block. The block is correctly pushing on the pressure plate, so that's good. It's just the player that's not. So I might have to like, if I want the player specifically... Alright, let's get rid of all that. If I want the player to specifically be able to interact with them, obj player, object shape, check collision. Throw that in an OR statement there. Okay. So there's a couple things I'll have to investigate on my own, but... Okay, so that's going back and forth because I'm also going to have to do that check here. In the other state. If not that, or that. if I want you to stay down. Because now it's firing back and forth like every frame, which I don't really like. That's also going to have to be something that I do. All right, see, there we go. That's also going to have to be something that I do with other shapes. There's also the question of if like NPCs or enemies or whatever things that derive from NPC could interact with these, and I think I'll make a final decision on that when I get to creating NPCs, because right now NPCs don't, right? Right now, NPCs aren't part of the collision world. They don't have their collision positions updated when they move. Why did I do that? Alright, that's going to be yet another thing I investigate off screen. Anyway, we have pressure plates. That took a little longer than I really wanted it to. But we do have pressure plates. And I think I'm going to leave it here for now. I can get rid of all this commented out code for the transition states that I don't need anymore. Right? Oh, you know what I do need to do, though, is, when you go into, say, when you leave the unpressed state, we're going to run our activation code, whatever that happens to be. It's going to be the opposite when you leave the press state. And that will allow us to do things like open doors or run more complicated logic when you push a block onto one of these things. Okay? That is the basis of how it works in Wizarducks. I have to imagine that's the basis of how such objects work in most games. But yeah, that's... I was hoping I was going to have time to get another thing done in this video, but I've been recording for an hour. Most of that's been... Not most, but like half of that's been trying to get groups and masks to behave. I really am going to have to figure out if the logic... Like, if and where the logic is reversed, because that's really starting to annoy me. I'll mark that off as complete, however. I'll probably also toss another, say, 5 or 6 interaction ideas on this deck here by the next video. Let's see, 5 or 6 times 3 would be 15 to 18 points. That's roughly what I expected to spend on this. Knockable Pot might end up in the maybe pile or the later pile, because honestly these would fill the role of treasure chests, and we already have treasure chests, and I don't know if time is best spent on that, so who knows. My name is Michael. I like Wizards and Dragons and making games. If you want the code for this, look for the GitHub repository down in the video description. Look for the 0.38 release for the stuff that we got done in this video. I try to post about 2 game dev videos a week. 1 let's make a game like this, and 1 tutorial. I like to focus on the weird 3D things you can do in Game Maker, so if any of this appeals to you, feel free to subscribe. I have a Patreon, so if you want to contribute to the channel, links to that can be found in all the usual places, and if you felt like pledging, I definitely would appreciate it. Otherwise, I hope you all found this interesting, and I will see you all later. Special thanks to DJ Gibbles, Edward Holt, Game Maker, Manta Ray, Sindra Larson, Squarecrow, Vitro V, and Zenjamin for supporting these videos. If you want to contribute to the channel, head on over to the Patreon page down in the video description to join the fun.